Hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic. I am Michael Clark, and this one really is exciting. It's not me just saying it, because there's an interesting story here. My next guest goes professionally by the name isitjosh. He makes fantastically well-crafted songs that cover a diverse array of multiple genres. Here's the funny part. I was pitched this episode a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't read too much in the bio. I just checked out his music, and I'm like, heck yeah, I like this guy's music. Let's have him on the show. Let's book him. Well, come to find out, he actually used to play in local bands in my area at the same time I was rocking stages with my rock bands. Pretty awesome. We talk a lot about it in the onset of the episode. I am so excited for you to check it out. isitjosh on Caught on the Mic today. As always, listener and viewer discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic. This is a funny story. We were just talking before we started recording. It's like two ships passing each other in the middle of the night. As I was wrapping up my tenure in the music industry in Omaha, Nebraska, my next guest was really just getting into full swing with his. He has found success online through platforms like TikTok and all the streaming services, but he's been in the music business for quite some time, starting with the MySpace era and now in the TikTok era. Professionally, he is known as isitjosh. My friend Josh joins me on the podcast today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Oh, this is, I think this is an amazing part of this podcast story is the fact that we both have Omaha, Nebraska roots, but we really didn't know it until the publicist made the connection.
I know. It was so wild. It wasn't literally until I think yesterday or today is when I found out.
Oh, I was sitting at my day job and I'm reading your bio and I try and make some notes. I want to do my due diligence.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, he played in bands with Casey. Our mutual friend, Casey Minkin, you get a shout out on this episode.
Shout out Casey Minkin.
How's it going? You're in Philly now.
I'm in Philly now. Yeah, I love it up here. I was born on the East Coast. I was born in New Hampshire. My dad grew up in Newark. My grandma was an Irish immigrant, to Ellis Island. So I have roots out here. But yeah, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska.
So when did you make that transition, moving back out to the East Coast from Omaha?
2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. Once I was able to realize oh, okay, I'm getting a second chance at this. My music career is taking off again. I'm in my 30s. I had given up. I was in a corporate job.
Right.
Yeah. And so it really just was able, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stay in Omaha. If I'm going to do this and I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to actually pursue something, I'm going to go to one of the top 10 cities in the country.
Absolutely. And I do want to circle back to that because I think there's some commonalities that you and I are going to be able to share because, the Midwest in general is, I don't want to say underserved, but it's treated like flyover country.
Oh,
but there's such a concentration of talent. But unfortunately, because it's not on a coast and it's not a part of a major metropolitan market, it sometimes becomes more competitive than collaborative.
Yeah.
Which is really not great.
It's not great. And it is a very competitive vibe, unfortunately. And it kind of becomes a thing where you want to be one of the best in your friend group or your scene. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't want to be the best in the world. You want to be the best in Omaha all of a sudden. And that's what I was trying to escape because I got caught in that.
You and me both. And well, I mean, shit, we're talking about it now. So let's just get into it. That was exactly my mindset when I walked away from it. I was telling you that my last show was probably one of the biggest shows I ever played, but it was having such a detriment to my mental health something that I loved doing so much was beating me up and making me, I don't know, a lesser person on the inside,
Yeah.
that it became really easy to walk away from it finally when I did. I cite it as being my Super Bowl moment. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is as good as it's
I'll
gonna get.
off here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, was that kind of a similar catalyst for you when you decided to make the move?
It was, yeah, because I was in a band called Hurricane Like Me prior to it, and it was right before the pandemic hit. I was 28, I think, and we wrote this single, and it hit 1 million streams in like no time. Like it was unbelievable. I had never seen anything like that before. That type of success. It was blowing up on YouTube. We were getting a music video ready for it, and then everything just got shut down. Like every business closed. We couldn't see each other. We couldn't meet up for practice. Like everyone was isolated. And we just gradually fell apart over the next 2 years and broke up, and nothing came from it. And I went full into the corporate world. And yeah, it was when I started posting to social media again. Uh, Honestly, to learn TikTok for the job that I had. But I ended up just posting, and I think like my fourth or fifth video just went super viral, which I thought at the time because it was like 100,000 views. But
Right.
then my following video had like 15 million views, I remember. And then from there, it just kept climbing. And yeah, I think when I flew out to New York after that to play a show, and I asked in the crowd, I said, does anyone here even know who I am? Are you guys just here for, and all these people raised their hand. And I'm like, what? And this one girl comes running down the middle, and I didn't have merch yet. So she had printed out a picture of my face on her shirt, and she was like, I flew here from like Boston. And I'm like, what? And so that was my moment of like, I'm in a solo project. Like I did this myself, and like this room is packed with people singing my lyrics back at me. And that was when I believe, quit my job and was like, I'm gonna do this again if I have one more shot.
Yeah, no diss to the waiting room because we love it, but you're not going to have moments like that where somebody comes from Boston with it.
No, and Omaha, I believe it was Rolling Stone, don't quote me, actually voted Omaha as one of the top 10 cities in the world for underground music. And that was years ago, but the Saddle Creek Records era, Bright Eyes, all that stuff that was going on. So it was a shame to see it just kind of.
If you get embedded in a music scene for long enough, like I say that a musician's lifespan of 10 years is the equivalent of the real world's lifespan of 25 years, because we see so many different phase changes in such a short period of time. Like I said in the intro, you went from the MySpace era to the TikTok era. And if you really think about it, that's like 4 or 5 different stylistic changes, genre changes. The industry has changed and turned over so many times. I know my experience as an Omaha musician, I saw the Saddle Creek thing happen firsthand, but at the same time, there was this big thing going on at the Ranch Bowl. At the same time,
Yeah.
yes, there was this big thing, right? There's this big thing going on at the Rock, and like there were different venues serving different genres. So we were more than just Saddle Creek. But I think it was actually the New York Times that did say that, and they called Omaha the next Seattle. And I always hated that tag because it made things fiercely competitive when it didn't need to be.
Yeah, it did. It was a competitive scene. When from what I found in Philly so far, it's not been.
Right.
I've reached out to bands last minute. Shout out Cheer Up Dusty. They were big. They ended up not playing the show because it was filled before they said yes, but they jumped right on it, and like all these other Philly bands were trying to jump on one of my bills that we threw together in like a week. And in Omaha, I just went,
Right.
I think I could have scrapped that together.
It would have been like, I'm not playing first, I'm not playing last. You can throw me in the middle. Trust me, I had many of those discussions.
Smoking a cigarette,
right.
And you're sad. Like,
right. I had many of those discussions, and I will be honest, like, full stop here. Like, I was just as guilty of it. Like, time and growth has helped me tremendously, and I was just as guilty of participating in it as I was. I'm not going to take this victim mentality like,
100%.
The scene was so bad. It's like, I was an asshole
I was
too.
in that scene, and I was definitely leading some of that scene during some of the
Right.
years. You know what I mean? So I was definitely contributing to the vibe. You know.
So, in doing my preparation for this episode, I did a scroll of some of your social media, and at the very end of January, you put up a post reflecting upon 20 years of doing music and kind of finding your voice. And, we've only been on this episode so far for like 10 minutes, but we've already covered a really large span of it, but we haven't really gotten into the weeds of anything
Me,
yet.
yeah, yeah.
So let's kind of talk about your origin story. Why don't you tell your background and how you kind of came to be from where you were to where you are now?
Yeah, so it all started when I was 10 years old, actually. Jackson 5 and the Hanson brothers noticed that they were kids. And I was watching videos and I'm like, man, these kids are doing this. And I specifically saw like one of the Hanson brothers was 10 when Umbop was
Right.
recorded. And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, I need a drum set for Christmas. And he got me one. So I started when I was 10. My brother got a guitar. We put together a little band. We played high school parties all through high school and things like that. Um, but I got more and more into singing as time went on because I kept doing harmonies with my brother. And then eventually, that led to me starting to just drum and sing harmonies and all these bands. And this is almost prior to the MySpace era. This is
Right.
like leading up to it and just the beginning of it. And it wasn't until I kind of left all these other bands I was drumming in and started singing in a band, Take Me to Vegas. That's when I really found like my drive and what I wanted to do. I was like, okay, I don't want to be behind a kit. I want to be up here. I want to be, moving the show along, putting a show on. And we found a decent amount of success on MySpace and YouTube. But it's funny, we'll come full circle at the end of this. Back then, we were pinned as a MySpace band, and I
Right.
think a lot of bands were like, that's a MySpace band. And so we did the thing for about 6 years. We became that band that opened up for every band that that came through. We found that Omaha success. We were the
Right.
best pop punk band in Omaha at the time. And we just couldn't hold on to a drummer. It was just the classic tale of not being able to hold on to drummers. And we ended up just breaking up because of that. I think we went through 5 drummers, and on the 5th or 6th one,
Wow.
we quit. And that's when I talked to Casey
Mm-hmm.
and started Hurricane Like Me. And that was the YouTube era, Facebook era. So completely different time, the era of spamming Facebook events, uh, things like that. And it really took about a year for us to find our sound and write that single that blew up. But uh, then we were labeled as kind of like this band that was just kind of doing stuff on Facebook. We weren't really playing shows. So I've always had this issue of being like pigeonholed
Right.
into like, oh, he's just a social media guy. And I'm like, well, these are the platforms that I have to use. And now eventually with TikTok, we've moved on to the isitjosh project. And again, I'm fighting that. Oh, he's a TikTok musician. And I'm like, no, I'm a musician who needs to use TikTok, And going back, the reason that I really just dug into all this is because, up until I was 10, I was living this like perfect, picture perfect family life, and the home fell apart basically. And things were just terrible from like 11 on for me. And I just locked myself in the basement with those instruments and just played and played and played and played. And I think that's where I got it in my head where it's like, no, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And that's why I'm
Yes.
34 years old right now. Like still just
Just grinding.
grinding like as hard as I can. Every single day is consumed with how can I push this further. But it's just been what it is for 20 years. And it's going to be like that for another 20 years, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because you go through. I don't want to use the term loosely because it is what it is, but you go through some form of family or familial trauma, and you find that, especially in your formative years where you're like 10, 11, 12, just getting into puberty, you find that music truly becomes your first and most consistent love in life, because that's the exact same thing that I went through. So this is how I can correlate and relate the story. And it does become a passion to a point where sometimes it's an obsession, and sometimes it can have very healthy moments, but also sometimes it can be an unhealthy
I'm in
obsession
the
as well.
basement and my hands are bleeding and I'm splattering blood all over my drums,
Right.
just beating the thoughts out of my head.
Right. Right. But I think as far as, using it as a healthy outlet, you are very transparent with the Is It Josh project about lyrical content being, very heavy in the mental health aspect. And so far, off of your upcoming full release album, you've released 3, going on 4 singles. The 4th single, Can't Take Back. Let's talk a little bit about the lyrical content and kind of what this music is all about.
Yeah, so it's this album that these songs are going to be on is it kind of became not a concept album, but the album now tells a story when it wasn't supposed to. And what this story is, it's kind of being told, especially with this single, is someone like me who battles, depression and PTSD and bipolar and all these other things that I'm dealing with, and just trying to maintain relationships and loving relationships and friendships and things like that. And Can't Take Back is a song about me letting all of those things get the best of me and saying something so stupid that I can't take back. Once I've said it, I
Right.
can't take it back. And I said it to someone I love, and they're, 2,000 miles away. I'm in Philly now, they're back in Omaha. And this song truly was about, like, you know what? I'm gonna take responsibility. I might have these issues in my head, but that's not the reason to put that on someone. And the song is about going and fixing it. It's about getting on a flight, flying across the country, and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like, you know, let's fix this. Let's work on this." And the
Right.
tribulations of it. And what this kind of ties into is when I started writing this album, I didn't realize it at the time because I started writing this album about 2 years ago. As I was falling in love, and I had no
Mhm.
idea. And by the end of this album, I had my heart ripped out and just yeah, I couldn't even begin to explain, just the worst possible thing has happened. Um, and so this part kind of sits in the middle, you know.
Right.
It's like things are getting a little out of hand here. You're dealing with your things, I'm dealing with my things, but it's also just like I did the stupid thing and I need to fix this. And it's about taking accountability.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a just a desperate plea of a song. Like, come on, like we can't sit like, we got to keep this going. Like, I don't want to run. Like, let's do this.
Yeah. Do you feel that because of your emotional growth and emotional intelligence that's come through all of these experiences that you could have written with this level of depth even 5 years ago?
Absolutely not.
Right.
No. Um, I'm in therapy now. I work with psychiatrists, psychologists. I've been hospitalized. Things have gotten out of hand. I've hit rock bottom multiple times. Especially in the last few years, my life, I went through a huge change up. Like, things are incredibly unstable compared to where I was before. Um, and I look back at some of my lyrics, especially with Take Me to Vegas, and I'm like, God, these are so juvenile. Because, I even when I would talk about like anxiety or things like that, like I couldn't, it wasn't, I hadn't fully sat with it yet. I hadn't
Right.
really thought about it.
Right. I will say, as somebody that's a slightly older counterpart to you, that I go back and I listen to some of my old material, and I think there's an accidental wisdom that you don't understand when you're in the heat of writing songs, that when you listen back to it, it's like, man, I this was therapy and I didn't realize it at the time. So yeah, it's easy to kind of go to that, well, these were some juvenile lyrics, this sucked.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of it, like, there will be times where I'll be at the gym, I'll be on the treadmill, and I'll be like, all right, let's fire up the old ego
I do the
machine
same
and
thing.
let's fire up the old ego machine and listen to some of my old shit and see if it holds up. And I will commonly surprise myself. It's not a matter of it's whether it's good or bad, that's subjective. but there are moments where I will be like, okay, this is incredibly insightful to who I was at that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will hear that, especially songs when I wrote when I was about 23,
Yeah.
24. I was dealing with substances and stuff like that. And that was the first time I started putting that in my songwriting, in very metaphorical ways, but it was very obvious what I was alluding to.
Right.
I would say it was about 2016 when I wrote And Lie to Me, that Hurricane Like Me song that
Mm-hmm.
that really blew up. And Lie to Me is actually a song about anxiety, and Anne is anxiety. I'll save it for
Right.
Genius, but that's when things really like started clicking for me. Like, okay, I can actually delve into this, and it's not so scary to talk about it, because as a man, I don't want to romanticize depression ever. That's one of my biggest things, is like, I
Right.
want to talk about it. I don't want to romanticize it. And I think emo musicians and angsty musicians like myself toe that line a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's weird because as you do self-develop and you do grow up, you learn to take, as you said, more accountability for your own actions, to where maybe some of your early material was just like, poor me, I'm such a victim. The world has got me down. But now you're like, man, I really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and I went through my heartbreaker phase, when
right.
I got out of a relationship, a long-term one, and then before I got in this other one that this album was about, I was a heartbreaker, and I was writing songs. Like, if you go back and listen to the isitjosh song Sorry, that's about me going around Omaha and just breaking hearts. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
being sassy about it and cocky about it, and like, that person just doesn't exist. Now that I've fallen in love again and have gone through that cycle and lived this entire other life, I go back and listen to Sorry, and I'm like, oh wow, I was kind of cold back then. Like, I was kind of that person that now I am dealing with, from
Right.
the other side of
Right.
things. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
So with the addition of streaming, because you not only came up into the TikTok era, but streaming became a totally different entity from the time of when you started to where it is now. How have you found that that has influenced your approach to music overall?
yeah, I think and I might even give some secrets here that a lot of artists, don't want to talk about, but truthfully, it's looking at these numbers
Mm-hmm.
and seeing, okay, I had 38,000 streams come in yesterday, you know, and you can tell everyone, like, I got 38,000 streams yesterday, but when you look at your analytics that Spotify puts you on Discover Weekly or radio for that song,
Mm-hmm.
and you got 38,000 streams from people who don't know you, they weren't actively listening. It just popped on their radio, maybe while they were working or driving, and maybe of those 38,000 streams, 150 people saved it, you know?
Right.
And so that's one of those things I think is coming to grips with, like, and also telling the promoters that are booking me, like, hey, just because I have 1 million streams, that's not going to equal a sold out show here. You know what I mean? The Spotify, the way they recommend things and put them in playlists, and you've just got all this stuff. Like, even me, like someone who is consistently consuming music, I'm not saving songs that are coming up.
Right.
It takes a real, something's got to stand out before I make my way to my phone and add it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and just one of the biggest adaptations, is not looking at those numbers and being like, I made it. I've got 1 million
Yes.
streams. I'm a solo artist. I made it. Maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, sure. Now, not so much. You can get 100,000 streams overnight because Spotify said, let's give them a chance on this playlist, and then they'll pull you the next day.
Yes.
It's just, so
Oh my
managing
gosh.
expectations really is the big
Yeah,
thing.
because you're speaking my language here. Because as somebody that was like very active during the MySpace era, MySpace created these opportunities for bands to fake their vanity metrics, and A&Rs were looking at these playlist numbers on MySpace and signing these checks to artists like handing out water. And
For the
it's like,
Sickest Kids got signed before they had a song out. just because they
Right.
had a good MySpace and ads.
Exactly. It's like how do you know somebody didn't just set up a play bot and play because that was a real thing in the MySpace era. But it's weird because I feel like Spotify and the streaming services kind of caught on to that early, and they do they catch flack, and it's a fair amount of flack for the way that they pay out. But I it's refreshing to hear an artist such as yourself be honest and transparent about things like that, because I don't think that people truly understand how much of a grind it is and how to measure your legitimacy versus, what
Yeah.
optics may portray.
Yeah, and then also dealing with that because, I've got
Yes.
250,000 followers on social media. And social media has gotten so saturated now. I used to be able to post a selfie and get 4,000 likes in 20 minutes. And that was just a day. You know what I mean? And now social media has changed so much. If I was to do that, if I was just to post a selfie to my Instagram, I'd probably get like 100 likes. You know what I mean? Just because like it's just not good content. Like you need virality. You need everything has to just be your 3-second hook. You got it. And I hate it so much.
It is so, oh my gosh, it is such a challenge because people don't understand that the crossroads between influencer culture and being a creative are at such a meeting place and melting pot right now. And the algorithm drives everything. Because as a podcaster, I deal with the same exact things that a lot of musicians deal with, especially when I'm dealing with publicists. It's like, well, you're not getting a whole lot of engagement on your social media and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, yeah, but you're not privy to some of my statistics. I live in a different, so it's weird because it's a constant proving ground, and the algorithm is constantly changing, especially with Instagram Reels and TikTok
Well,
specifically.
Instagram is pushing photos now.
Yes.
Actually, they're not paying us for Reels anymore.
Right.
In our bonus program, we're only getting paid for photos right now. So it's just like, what do you want from what do you offer me? I'm trying to keep up here, and it's a year ago I hid my likes. Best thing I've ever done. Even on the videos that get like 100,000 plus likes, like I'm keeping them hidden. It's just I even keep them hidden for myself, and I've made this decision of like, okay, if I can't consistently go viral by posting my music and things that I want to show, I'm still gonna post those. And I'm going to sit on that 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 view video. And even though I might be embarrassed, like I've got 75,000 followers, only 4,000 people watch this, and now everyone's looking at me and making fun of me. Like, that's 4,000 people.
Right.
That's 4,000 people. And I really was when I took a step back, hid my likes. And now, you know what? I'm going to post something, and the people who want to see it are going to seek it out. And since I've started doing this and stopped memeing so much and promoting other bands and doing the influencer thing, I got sick of it. I want to do my own music. Once I switched from content creator to musician full time, like that engagement just fell off. And that's just what to expect, Some of my favorite artists in the world will get the same amount of engagement as me, and I'll be sitting there like pouting, like, oh, I'm not getting the same that I used to get.
Right.
But it's a different world, and I think likes mean nothing. I will watch the funniest reel, send it to 5 of my friends, and not like it, and then I'll move on. I don't double tap. It's just a metric that doesn't matter to me. If you want to see my stuff, you're gonna see it. And all these people who are unfollowing me are getting replaced by people who are following me for the things that I am posting now.
Yeah, some of your virality has come about through the TikTok platform. And again, taking a cursory search of your social media, when it went down for that 24 hours, how bleak was that?
I made a TikTok once it came back up, and that went kind of viral. And I was like, I feel like last night we all just went through like a really bad breakup, and we all just kind of crashed out and like put some things publicly. We had people crying, and then like you wake up with a little clarity, and we all kind of got back on there, and we're like, hey, think maybe we can make this work. Like it literally felt like a toxic like breakup, and we're all just like coming out of it and just being like, oh, that was a little, sorry, a little embarrassing.
Well, since you kind of like to nerd out about the algorithm and some of the analytics like I do, when it went down for that 24 hours and then came back, did you feel the algorithm was the same or did it reset for
It
you?
completely changed.
Mine too.
Completely
And
changed,
I've
yeah.
talked to other people and they're like, mine was fine. It's the same thing. But for me, it was completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different.
And the fact that my TikTok is just dead for so many people. I have friends that have millions of followers and are getting like 400 views. You know, it's just what it is right now. It's a saturated platform. And the fact that it's not just my feed, but my algorithm, like that's being pushed out to people,
Yes.
also was switched because all of a sudden my videos I was posting were doing like some very well with like ratios that didn't make sense. And like, you know, if this video is doing well, then that last one should have really done well, you know, so something changed when TikTok went down.
Right.
Some switches were switched somewhere. You know.
Well, let's correlate all of this to your upcoming album release and how you strategize releasing singles and releasing songs and marketing your music going forward. New single, Can't Take Back, drops on March 28th.
Yes.
I've listened to it like no less than 10 times today. Fantastic song. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I was privy to an advance copy. But but fantastic song. I really expect this song to perform really well on all platforms.
Thank you.
So I mean that as a sincerest compliment. I don't just say shit to say it.
I appreciate that.
But, you know, when you launch this single, and this episode might drop after the fact, I'm not sure yet. But when you launch this single, how are you going to use these moments as flashpoints to bring attention to this song that's really deserving?
Yeah. So what's funny is thank you for saying that because I wasn't actually sure if I wanted to. I was a little hesitant about this song. So almost wasn't going to be on its own. And I had enough people be like, this is a really good song, dude. That I was like, okay, we'll do it. But I would say that, you know, I used to have a strong pre-release strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I used to push for pre-saves and I could get thousands of them. But Instagram, Meta, I should say, and TikTok now have their own browsers. So when you click that link, it opens it up in TikTok. You try to pre-save on Spotify. It asks you to log in. It doesn't have your login info stored. It's a whole nightmare. No one's pre-saving. And so now I've kind of doing this thing now where I'm only posting about my upcoming release a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times. And then that Friday when it drops, it's just balls to the wall. And sometimes, you know, I've gone comedy. Sometimes I've gone serious. I do insane things. I spent hundreds of hours making a video game that involved my top fans. And you could pre-save my song from the video game. And
That's
the whole
awesome.
video game is I got captured by someone and you had to go save me before he stole my song. You know, just things like that. I will do insanity.
Right.
I go all out. And I did a lot of skits and a lot of comedy and stuff, and that stuff used to work well. It still kind of does. But right now I'm kind of going through and looking at like what's working, what's really working, you know, and how can I put my own spin on this? Because everything's been done already, you know, so you
Right.
have to take something and make it better. So it's really a mix of, okay, I have a new song out now. I have an album coming. If I promo for the next 2 months, my accounts are going to die, you know? So it's really just going to be finding that balance of like, hey, here I am talking about my normal life. Hey, here I am being a little funny. Hey, here's my new song. Just a reminder. Hey, thanks for everyone who's been streaming it, you know, and just kind of doing that loop and making sure that you don't get caught in the promo,
Yes.
because people will just run away from it. But yeah, it's finding that balance, and I've done it. I'm a marketer by trade, like before I got into all of this, so I've done all of this myself up until now. This is the first year that I've actually asked for help with a publicist and things like that. But yeah, right. It's really I'm a little nervous because I'm usually so prepared, and because so much has changed just in the last 6 months,
Right.
I really am just like shooting from the hip here, just really trying to do my best to get this all done, you know. And we move in a place where you used to get an album and then you'd hold on to that album for 6 months to a year while people reviewed it and did this, and you're taking your time. Right now, I'm still waiting on masters to come back.
Right.
I have songs that are featuring like big artists and things like that that I can't talk about, and it doesn't matter anymore. Now I'm gonna get those masters back, and probably a month later that album is gonna be out.
Right.
So just adapting to that is gonna be really difficult. I've never done it before. I've never put out a full length album by myself. They tell you don't do that. They say no label will want to touch you after you put out your debut album. But in my head, it's like, well, I've turned down so many record label offers because it's like, why? I don't need a record label because
Right.
I've done all the work myself. What they could do for me is maybe give me a big check that I got to pay back over the next 3 years. That's about the extent of it. But
So, it's a common question I ask a lot of people that are entrenched in the business now, that were also entrenched in it back in. Do you like the new style of release strategy where you trickle songs out or not?
no, yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Because I'm very much a single guy.
Mhm.
Like if you look at my Spotify or to go through that, you're not going to see full albums. You're going to see sporadic songs that I like, and it's going to be all over the place, from country to hip hop to rock to
Right.
blues. It's everywhere. Um, and the reason we trickle those is so that you release a single, and then the next month you release another single with that single again, and those streams transfer over. There's some metadata happening, and you keep doing that, but you have to put out a song every month. And like I work with an amazing producer, actually a producer team, Comfort and Venus, on everything. They're my best friends. They're in Omaha. Shout out Comfort Studios. And even at this pace, like we've got to release these songs. And now some songs that we released a year ago that are going to be on this album had to get a whole remix. We've had to
Right.
remix them, remastered, because our entire sound has evolved. He's gotten better. I've gotten better. And so that's a very interesting thing to just deal with. And I
Right.
think that having more time to just sit on something allowed a lot of that perfectionist to come in that stop us from even releasing things. So this kind of forces us to put stuff out. But now I'm at a pace where it's moving so fast that after I release something, I might be like, oh no, we left an automation in there that pulls down the bass guitar for 2 seconds and then comes back up. A mix mistake or something. And it's
Right.
like, how do we, that's already out because we're moving so fast. It's hard to keep up with.
I think that's something that laymen typically do not understand about releasing music, is especially if you are going to make it a collection. Ironically, the debut album is called A Collection of Short Stories About the Heart.
Yes.
But if you're going to release a collection, you want them all to sound consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might have recorded song a year and a half ago, but recorded song Z just a month ago.
Yep.
And sometimes it's really hard to make those things sound like they're a part of the same
Incredibly
album.
hard, especially if you switch hardware halfway through.
Right. Right.
I think halfway through he got a quarter of the way through he got a better mic, and then halfway through he got a brand new interface. And so it's just become this thing where it's like, okay, this last song we just recorded is leagues ahead of this one,
Right.
but this song also has 100,000 streams already, so we can't change it too much.
Right.
So we've just got to fine tune it just enough so that it's on par, but it doesn't sound like a new song.
Well, and then you become burdened with the idea of, do I need to chop this song or that song? Because I don't know if it fits the whole context of the story anymore,
What's the great part about not being on a label is this album has 17 tracks.
Dope.
And a label would be like, yo, cut 7 of those. And
Right.
I don't care. I have a country song on here.
Oh, awesome.
Screamo song, emo, acoustic, pop rock, anthem rock. I mean, this album, I'm excited to see the people who are going to review this album try to be like, this is the genre that this is, because it doesn't exist. Like, it just does not. I know a lot of people say that, but I feel like I can truthfully say that this album is genreless.
Oh, I love that, dude. I love that, because you are absolutely right. A label's going to come in and say, I want 10 songs of 3-minute, 30-second bangers, not
Yeah.
a second over on any song. You know?
And now it's 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
I know, it's crazy, right? Oh my gosh. I don't know how many summits I went to over the years in music conferences where you have a whole board of people and they review your music and they're like, no, this is the formula. And it's like,
Yeah. And
fuck
then we've
the
got Sleep
formula.
Token, who just dropped a almost 7-minute
Right.
song, and I transcended space and time listening to it. I did that today. I still levitating off my chair.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
It makes you really look at your music and go, maybe I could add something. Maybe I actually get a saxophone in here.
Right? Get the shirtless dude from the Lost Boys to play on your album.
Oh, like, you guys, come on, man. I know you gotta push the genre forward, but leave a little for us. Yeah.
That's amazing. So let's talk about outside the scope of music just a little bit. What fills your cup outside of music? What are some other things that you're into that help inspire you as a person and an artist?
Yeah, I would say going down that route. I'm very into poetry. Been getting more and more into it, been getting more open about sharing it and things like that. Because my lyrical content is already pretty intense sometimes about the mental health stuff. But the poetry is, even goes even further down that road. So I love poetry. I've taken up videography and I've been making my own music videos. If you guys want to check out my music video for Unclear, that's my post-hardcore song.
That's awesome.
I made that all myself. And then I think one of the biggest creative things for me is I'm a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I only do like homebrewed worlds, so I will spend at least an hour a day just creating this whole world and characters and backstories and plot lines. And then once a week, me and my best friends all meet up and we get to tell a story together. And that keeps my creative juices just really going. And there's actually been times where like certain things have happened like in the story where I'm like, this might, I might be able to draw some inspiration from this. You know what I mean?
No
Like,
kidding.
yeah, yeah.
You just write a whole concept album around a campaign and you're good to go.
A bard or something. Like, yeah, so those things. And then yeah, your typical nerdy stuff. Like I love video games. I try not to play as many video games anymore. Because I find myself to be a gamer that will end up like looking at spreadsheets and being like, how can I maximize my damage output? And I'll end up doing that for 6 hours. And I'm like, what did I just do? I'm probably going to play this game for another week. And yeah, like anime and stuff like that. But the meat of it truly sticks around like poetry, just writing. I always wanted to write a book, world building, just things like that. Dungeons and Dragons. Anytime I can be creative, act a little bit. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So with this release impending, all of these singles, are you planning on doing some touring and coming back home?
Yeah, actually, nothing to announce yet, but I just got off a little tour, not just, but it was in October.
Mhm.
And actually I booked it myself, and it went poorly in the sense that our second show, the venue's power went out.
Oh
And
no.
so we couldn't play it, and we had to like rent equipment and play at some patio somewhere. And then like on our way to Nashville, we hit a deer at 4 a.m. and totaled the van.
Oof.
And so, I left this tour hurting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not a smooth tour. But yeah, I know with this album, I'm definitely gonna do another tour. I gotta get down to Omaha, gotta get down to the Midwest.
Yeah,
I'll never skip over Omaha. Yeah,
I was talking to one of the promoters from 1% about you this morning. And he's like, "Oh yeah." He goes, I'll never forget Josh." He goes, "He just played a show at the Reverb not too long ago and it was like one of our best shows that we've had there."
we filled it, and it was on like a Thursday.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that a couple of times in Omaha where like I remember my old band Take Me to Vegas had an album coming out, and they were like, we booked it on a Sunday, and they're like, why are you booking it on a Sunday? And I asked him, I said, what's your capacity here? And he's like 250. And I was like, okay. He's like, why are you asking? He's like, we have one bartender. And I was like, you should get another bartender. And they just would not believe us. They're like, we're just some Sunday band. And yeah, that was a sold out show. And they had to call in like 3 other staff members. And I remember it was just wall to wall packed. It was a Sunday. It's just like,
That's
When you
amazing.
grind the same city for so long, eventually you can just fill a room.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
You know?
for sure. And that's the thing I think that a lot of people don't take away from their own story is that it's not a sprint, it is a marathon at times. And you're either going to constantly be running or you're going to restart over and over and over. And it sounds to me like you're not afraid to start over if you need to. And
Yeah, I'll start over as many times as I need to.
I
Yeah.
think that's a big part and a big element to your story. And I think that's something that people are going to really appreciate with you in this chapter of your musical career.
There's been a lot of moments where it's like, I thought I made it, and it would just get ripped away. And then I
Mm-hmm.
thought I made it again and it get ripped away. I played in front of 40,000 people opening for Cheap Trick at 38 Special. I thought that was my break. It wasn't. The million streams, that wasn't my break. Getting a 250,000 social media followers, that wasn't my break. And it's just a thing where you just have to keep grinding. And being someone like me who suffers from, bipolar disorder, my mood swings, a couple weeks ago, I was hypomanic and I was getting things done. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m. and I'm getting content pushed out and boom, 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 sending emails to people who I shouldn't be sending emails to, asking questions, and they're like saying yes. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I just got this big deal. And then, I crash hard when I crash.
Yeah.
And being on the internet, I have to put myself on the internet every day. And so there are days where I will be crying for hours for no reason. I'm just depressed. I'm just sad and I'm crying. And I will literally clean myself up enough to make a funny video.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I've even tweeted that and like made jokes about like stop crying long enough to post a meme. But it's truthful. And like
Yeah.
so battling that while I'm also I have to be so forward facing on the internet and constantly being like, I can't get on there. I do post some sad stuff every now and then. And I tell people, hey, I was hospitalized and, I chose to stay. And now here I am 6 months later and we get into those things, but I don't always want to post those. So I really sometimes will just come on and be like, hey guys, how you doing today? Where,
Yeah.
and, yeah, I think it just bleeds into all aspects of my life a little bit.
Well, every once in a while I'll do one of these episodes and I'll say, unsolicited advice from your friend Mike that you didn't ask for. But but I will tell you that there is a time that'll probably be coming for you if it's not already there, where you find that the best audience for you to serve and for the sake of your mental health is you. That at the end of the day, if you're satisfied and you're happy with what you've created, that is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And audiences are circling back to authenticity. And I think that's, going back to our conversation about social media and everything, we can talk algorithms, we can talk statistics, we can talk all of these conflated things like numbers. But, at the end of the day, being authentic to who you truly are is the best thing that you can do for yourself and the best thing that you can do for a would-be audience. And,
I think that's great advice. And I think that's a beautiful thing to say. And yeah, I think that's something, that I work on in therapy and that I'm actively working on that right now is seeking my own validation. You know what I mean? I don't need ever, I got a new song. Let me send this to all my best friends and see what they have to say. Like I can just sit with that and be like, I wrote a pretty good song. I don't need to seek this out. And so finding that internal happiness, documenting it, putting it out there on the internet to show people like, look, I quit my job. I have this front up where I'm on the Emo's Not Dead cruise and partying and I'm hanging out with all your favorite artists and doing all these cool things backstage. I am struggling. you know what
right,
I mean? So
right.
I am very cautious to balance that and be like, hey guys, look at all this cool stuff I'm doing. But also, hey, let me just check in real quick. I'm
Right.
having a hard time. I don't feel right just doing this. So,
Right. I think the thing that strikes me about your story is there are so many similar parallels to myself and things that you've experienced where it's that, oh my gosh, it's almost about to happen
so
moment that
close.
happens over and over and over. And I will tell you, like, for me, when the pandemic happened, like the day after, when everything shut down, I crashed out really hard. My routines just completely got screwed up, and I'm a creature of habit. But it also gave me an opportunity to take a step back and like start doing things for me again. And one of those things ended up being this podcast. And I look at doing this vessel very similar to how I looked at all of my music. And I think at the end of the day, vanity metrics aside, so long as I'm happy with the end result, I'm doing the best thing that I can.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing the same thing with this batch of music.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And it's nice to hear that, because I do feel that way. I truly do feel that way, that I'm being, very authentic with this stuff. I never really would sing about love. I never really would do all this stuff. And it's all coming back to authenticity. And I see it with my followers too. They really appreciate when I step away from the is it Josh, and Josh shows up for a second.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So, leaning into that and leaning into that preservation of a positive outlook and looking through the windshields as opposed to rear view mirrors, and how we can be better than what we were before. My closing question is a huge one. I ask it every single episode. We're like 160 some plus episodes into the show now.
It's awesome.
So my closing question is, what's your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today?
Oh gosh, that is a great question. And truly, I'm just gonna say the first thing that comes to my mind, and it seems like such a cliche answer, but it truly is. We need to start treating people with the exact level of empathy that we would expect from someone else. And it's not surface level, it's not transactional. It needs to be a human compassion and human love for each other. And you need to be able to answer for your brothers and answer for your sisters and your friends and your family, and listen to them and have those tough conversations. And we need to just open up more. Everything's become so closed down and everything's so masked up. And if we could all just open up to each other, love each other, platonic love. It's a beautiful thing. Spread more platonic love. Love your friends. Just spread it around, and then we won't be so scared to talk about the bad. So many people that we lose in silence. If we would just open up a little bit more, spread love, spread positivity, then it creates these windows for us to feel a little more safe to talk about some of the things that are bothering.
I love that, man. I love that. Well, tell my audience where they can find you online.
Yeah, so best place and easiest place to remember is isitjosh.com. That's where I've got just all of my links and everything that's going on. I've got an iOS app, the Isitjosh iOS app. That's now on web as well. And then all my social media is just isitjosh. You can basically find me anywhere. Anywhere you find anyone. Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music. We're everywhere.
Love it. Can't Take Back drops March 28th. If this episode drops after that, then go to Spotify and listen to it. But if this episode drops before it, make sure you pre-save it. But man, Josh, I am glad to know you. I'm glad to have another brother from the Midwest.
Go.
And I hope we get to run into each other in the real world sometime in the near future.
100%. Absolutely.
Josh, thank you so much for doing the podcast. The world's a much better place with you in it, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.